Good evening and welcome to the City of Topeka Planning Commission meeting. We are a commission appointed by the mayor and the city council to plan for the orderly growth and development of the community, to hold public hearings, and to make recommendations to the governing body on planning items. Please note that the governing body rules state that the public hearings for planning cases shall be conducted solely by the planning commission. No additional public hearings will be conducted by the governing body. Tonight's cases are tentatively scheduled to be heard by the governing body next month. Agendas can be found at topeka.org. Some of tonight's cases involve public hearings. For those cases, the procedure will be as follows. First, the planning department will summarize the case. Next, we will hear from the applicant or a representative of the applicant. Then we will receive public testimony. Comments are limited to 4 minutes. For agenda items that do not involve public hearing, public comment is allowed, provided the person has signed up on Topeka Speaks or has notified staff prior to 5 p.m. today. Comments are limited to 4 minutes. Finally, at the end of regular business, the commission will entertain general comment regarding matters related to the commission business, provided the person has signed up at Topeka Speaks or has notified staff prior to 5 p.m. today. Comments are limited to 4 minutes. Amanda, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Mock?
Here.
Ms. Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Kaut?
Here.
Mr. Nager?
Here.
Mr. Lawley?
Here.
And Ms. Hannon?
Here.
We have enough for a quorum.
Next is considering the minutes from our October meeting. I'll entertain a motion on those. Commissioner Kaut.
Move approval as submitted by staff.
Second.
With a motion by Commissioner Kaup and a second by Commissioner Hannon. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, Amanda, would you take the roll?
Ms. Hannon?
Aye.
Mr. Lawley?
Aye.
Mr. Nager?
Aye.
Mr. Kaut?
Aye.
Ms. Nelson?
Aye.
Mr. Mock?
Aye.
Minutes pass.
Next is any declaration of conflict of interest or ex parte communications that members of the commission have had relevant to any of the cases tonight.
I have 2.
Okay.
The KDOT item, I'm the architect on that project, so conflict of interest. The Auburn and Washburn one, I don't have a conflict of interest, and I can make an independent decision. But the district is a client of my firms that I work at.
Okay. For the one that she does have a conflict of interest, does that mess with quorum at all? No? Okay.
No, you've got 6 members here, so if she wants to recuse herself for that one, that's fine.
All right. Any other conflicts of interest? All right, and then we will move on to action items. We're going to start with that KDOT one, so if you want to step out. Yeah, we're going to start with P2420, KDOT District Number 1 Subdivision, preliminary and final plat. So turn over to staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a subdivision plat by the State of Kansas Department of Transportation. Property is located. The property is located at the northwest intersection of Rice Road and Southeast 21st Street, just between Wittenberg Road and Rice Road, south of the interchange of Rice and Interstate 70. Comprises 19.91 acres. It's a 1-lot subdivision plat proposed for an administrative office for the Kansas Department of Transportation. zoning of the property is I-1, so that is not before you tonight, just a subdivision plat. Just a little background. The reason you're hearing this plat is as a major plat rather than us taking it administratively, is there is a major sanitary sewer line extension that's proposed along 21st Street coming from Wittenberg Road. So anytime there's a major public improvement like that, sanitary sewer or water, the plat has to go before the Planning Commission and the City Council for acceptance of any easements and rights-of-way that are needed. So that is the reason you're seeing a one-lot subdivision plat tonight. Staff is recommending approval subject to 2 conditions in the staff report. One being then denoting and showing the proposed extension on the preliminary plat as stated and required in the subdivision regulations, section 1835-150I. That is the one condition we have before this goes on to City Council. And then approval of the stormwater management plan, which is required as well before proceeding on to City Council for acceptance of land dedications. The staff is recommending approval. The applicant's consultant is not here that I can see, and I'm open for any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions for staff? All right, seeing none, and I believe we see no representative of the applicant tonight. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this item? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to discussion by commissioners. Seeing nothing for that, I would entertain a motion on this from one of the commissioners.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Sounds good. Amanda, would you take the roll?
Mr. Mock?
Aye.
Ms. Nelson?
Aye.
Mr. Kaut?
Aye.
Mr. Nager?
Aye.
Mr. Lally?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Would someone go get Commissioner Hannah? Thank you. Our next action item is A24-5, Auburn Washburn Annexation. I'll turn it over to city staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. This one is a little different than some of the other annexations we've had. This is not a unilateral annexation, which is what we brought forward the 4 other times this year. What that means is that the property owner has not consented to this annexation, but under Kansas statutes, the city can annex this property. There's a process, and we'll cover that in a little bit, but just wanted to start out by saying this one is a little bit different. The subject property, there's 2 properties for this one, is 20.9 acres. They are currently owned by the Auburn Washburn School District. There's also some right-of-way along Southwest Wanamaker Road and Southwest 53rd that'll be annexed as part of this as well. The property was identified in the Land Use and Growth Management Plan 2040 as Tier 3 of the UGA. It's been determined that can graduate to Tier 2. It is currently on city sewer. There was a 2008 interlocal agreement that was signed by the city, the school district, and then a developer as well to serve the school district and then some subdivisions to the southeast of here. So it's currently on city sewer, and it is being served by Rural Water District number 3, and it will continue to be served by Rural Water District number 3. We also have no indication from the school district that there are any intent to develop this property any further. So that is kind of the background for this. There is no new cost for fire or the police department. Streets will accrue roughly $30,000 a year in additional costs as kind of the maintenance that goes with Wanamaker and 53rd Street. There's a bar through there that you cannot see that says Planning Commission. But so with this process being a little bit different, the requirements for this annexation, again, we're here for Planning Commission to find that it's consistent with the Land Use and Growth Management Plan 2040. The governing body then sets a resolution of intent to annex. Public notices are sent to the impacted entities. There's a public hearing, and then the governing body passes that ordinance to annex. So that timeline, again, a little bit different, whereas with the unilateral annexations, we bring it forward 1 month, and then typically the next month, this property is annexed. With this, we will set a public, in December, the governing body will set a public hearing date, and then in February, that public hearing will be held. So this is a much longer process. And a little background on this, because I realize this seems like a lot for 2 properties that are not going to develop. The city has been approached essentially to annex what is phase 3 up there. So that is the Timber Ridge Subdivision number 1, Timber Ridge Subdivision number 2. Those are also on city sewer. Those were, the developer also signed for the interlocal agreement in 2008. So those properties are being served by Rural Water District number 3 on city sewer. That is kind of the intent. Staff recommends that this annexation is consistent with the Land Use and Growth Management Plan 2040, and I would take any questions at this time.
So this is a city-initiated process, so there is no applicant.
Correct.
All right. Then we will move on to public testimony. Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and then we'll move on to any discussion by commissioners about this.
Mr. Chairman, the report speaks for itself. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that's the issue that's in front of us. So whenever you're ready for a motion, I'll so move.
Go ahead.
I would move that the Planning Commission finds the proposed annexation is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
I would second.
All right. With a motion by Commissioner Kalp and a second by Commissioner Nelson, any further discussion on the motion? All right. Amanda, would you take the roll?
Ms. Heenan.
Aye.
Mr. Lawley.
Aye.
Mr. Nager.
Aye.
Mr. Kalp.
Aye.
Ms. Nelson.
Aye.
Mr. Mock.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Moving on to action item number 3, that is the potential amendments to the Planning Commission's bylaws. Should I turn this over to you or city staff, or?
I'd be glad to make a comment or two. I mean, the Planning Commission has heard this the last couple of meetings, and staff has made some additional changes that were discussed at the last meeting, and everything seems to be okay in my view. I think there's one small correction on Article 4, Section 2, the heading. In the previous drafts, the heading has been special meetings, semicolon, special committees, semicolon, standing committees. And I somehow, and I'm sure it's just an oversight, the standing committees got dropped out. But I think that needs to be part of the heading for Article 4, Section 2. as subsection B of that section is the subsection referring to standing committees. So, Mr. Chairman, when the time comes for a motion to adopt the bylaws, I would offer the motion to adopt with that correction to the heading on section 2. Are you tracking where?
Can you, walk me through that again?
I'm sorry?
Could you walk through it
Yeah,
again?
okay. Article 4, meetings, section 2, in this draft says special meetings, special committees. That's the language that's in the bylaws right now. But the drafts that have been circulated last month, and then the version that's on the agenda here, I'm sorry, the drafts that have been circulated previously had a semicolon for standing committees as part of the headings. So
All right.
I think it was just an oversight.
I was looking at the wrong section too, so. I was looking at the wrong part, so that's what was going on. All right, any other discussion on the proposed bylaw amendments? Seeing none, I think I'm ready for that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move adoption of the amendments to the bylaws with the correction to the heading in section 2 of Article 4 to add semicolon standing committees.
All right,
I'll second.
any discussion on the motion? Amanda?
Mr. Malk?
Aye.
Ms. Nelson?
Aye.
Mr. Kaut?
Aye.
Mr. Nager?
Aye.
Mr. Lawley?
Aye.
Ms. Hannon?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Moving on, that concludes our action items. We move on to discussion items, which is the Land Use and Growth Management Plan for 2040.
Commissioners, I will handle this one. Pretty short presentation. Since we got through some stuff quick, I'll try to get along here. There's not going to be a lot of detail in this presentation. The detail will follow. Really just trying to highlight those sections that we're targeting, so to speak, for updates to the Land Use and Growth Management Plan, which is due to be updated. We're 10 years in now, so that's the project. So just a little bit of kind of high level, what is, the comp plan? What are we talking about here? So Land Use and Growth Management Plan is an element of the comp plan. As its name suggests, its overall purpose is to have policy or guidance for land use decisions and growth management policies for the future growth of Topeka. So policy documents, especially in our world here, get implemented through code changes, regulations, those sorts of things. So when we adopted the Land Use and Growth Management Plan in 2014, we also amended the subdivision regulations. So Topeka has subdivision authority out to 3 miles. So we regulate land divisions out to 3 miles. We amended the subdivision regulations to be compliant with the growth management plan, and then also water and sewer regulations. So we changed the utility regulations for service outside the city in addition to the subdivision regulations. So those are some ways that we implemented the land use and growth management plan, was to actually influence and change regulations that we use to judge development. So that's what the land use and growth management plan is, the LUGMUP. What it isn't is sort of a transportation plan, right? So we might have a few things in here that talk about transportation, sort of how you design neighborhoods and those sorts of things, but our transportation guidance comes from the city's transportation plan. We have a whole nother section that does transportation plan, does the pedestrian plan, the bikeways plan. That's where we go if we want to find policies or guidance about transportation. It's also not our housing study or our housing plan here. We've got a few things in there probably, and probably could use a few more that talk about housing. But we have a market study, a housing market study from 2020 that we use. So you might have noticed occasionally in our staff reports, we might talk about the comp plan, but we also talk about the housing study and what it said about this particular zoning case that you were reviewing. So land use and growth management plan is really land use and growth management. So having said that, so here's what we're targeting to update. So kind of low hanging fruit here is the background section. So it's the first part of that document. Data is 10 years old now, so what we'll do is update the population trends, update the community profile. So that will change. So the growth management section, I've talked a little bit about this, but again, we control the platting out to 3 miles. And what we changed in 2014 was the platting exemption. So it used to be you could get 3 acres and 200 feet of frontage, you could divide your property outside the city. We changed those regulations to 20 acres if you're in the UGA and 3 acres with some other stuff outside. So if you can meet an exemption still today, which is harder now, then you can meet the exemption. But if you have to plat, that's where the growth management policies talk about the 80-20. That's the kind of the overarching idea when it comes to creating a land division outside the city, is that you would plat it in a way that meets the 80-20. So it's based on a 20-acre model, basically. What we've found over the 10 years is when you get bigger properties, so 30 acres, 40 acres, the 80-20 maybe doesn't work quite as well or make as much sense to hit those numbers specifically. What we're thinking about doing is if the 80 is at least 20 acres or maybe more, then the 20 can be 30 or 25 or something. We'll allow a bigger 20 is what I'm getting at. If you've got a bigger property and can at least give us 20 acres on the 80%. So that's partially what we're doing there. And that doesn't fix a lot of stuff, but that will help with some stuff for sure if we can fix that. Also part of this, we're looking at the maps. So, we've annexed things that were in tier 3, for instance, that needs to change color. We've annexed some stuff that's in tier 2. We just need to update the map based on annexations. So a big part of the plan is the future land use. We use that fairly consistently in the zoning staff reports. That gets either the language or the map gets referenced in the staff reports. Some things that we've noticed in reviewing staff reports, but also just we get a lot of questions about, hey, can I do this with this property? There's some instances where the land use plan is just not super helpful. It's not right. Something's not right about it based on kind of what's on the ground. So we just need to put a little effort into updating it and really looking more specifically at the existing city and where some things aren't really designated correctly. And also the text, there's probably some text changes we can do to clean up some things that we've kind of implemented over the years. So that's a multi-staff person task there, because there's a lot there to look at. And then just a reminder, so we have neighborhood plans that have future land use within them. So this is a more block by block future land use, where the land use and growth management plan is kind of up to 30,000 foot view here. So just a reminder on process. So when we adopt neighborhood plans, you are amending them into the comprehensive plan. So those are elements of the comp plan, just like the land use and growth management plan is. And this becomes the future land use for that neighborhood, not this. So we've got some white space in there. That's the neighborhood plans that we have. And then if we update a neighborhood plan and that map changes, then we'll update the map. And then just a few more things. So the executive summary is a pretty interesting read, because we did a lot of that already. And so we can update that with maybe some new recommendations. And then there's a section called measurables that, look at these things if you want to know if any of this worked, basically. Did any of this work? Look at these things. So we'll review those measurables and discuss those with the Planning Commission. I think that will be pretty interesting discussion, actually. And then the implementation summary, we just need to update that and, maybe find some new things to implement. So that's it, really. We're not getting, and we've also heard some possible changes to the vision statement that we can work through as well. So we're not getting into, when we're looking at the future land use plan, we're probably not getting too much into what's outside the city and what we might designate that. That's kind of a different process. This isn't really that process, I don't think. We're just trying to fix some things and make it work a little better for the most part. So next steps would be probably a January PC meeting where each one of those things I showed, we'll just bring those amendments as a discussion item and just see how that goes. And then a potential public hearing in February would be a comprehensive plan amendment. We're basically Anyway, I think that's it. If there's any questions about that, any thoughts?
Commissioner Cow?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan, on the future land use map and also on the neighborhood maps, the yellow, the key says low-density residential. And I don't know that low density is defined. It's defined within the zoning regulations, right?
It's defined in the policy also.
Okay.
There's a description.
Exclusively single family?
The density, so in every neighborhood, it's not necessarily just residential. I think we've potentially included duplex in some of them. They're not all consistent. I think this policy, what does it say? I know the density is not just single family.
Well,
Actually, it talks about new single and two-family development should demonstrate compatibility with existing character. So the density isn't really just single-family, and it mentions two-family in that yellow category.
so it's not a X number of dwelling units per acre.
It talks about 3 to 4 dwelling units per acre.
That's overall density.
Overall density, yeah.
So there's nothing in that key that would lead to an interpretation that it's exclusively single family.
Not if you read the words in the plan.
Good, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Okay, thank you.
Then we will continue on. Next is a report from the Special Committee on Housing.
Okay.
Do we,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, the Incentives Committee met shortly before this meeting and covered a little bit of ground, and constructively, I think. It made note of the fact that some of the, and time will tell on this, but it may happen in fairly short order, and that is that federal programs, housing programs geared towards affordable housing may be on the chopping block, and that affects both funding from the federal government and through the state. So the city of Topeka may find itself, like other cities, having to be a little bit more self-reliant than we have in the past. It's something to watch because it could be pretty significant changes in the funding. Most of the time, most of our discussion was about how to take up further vetting of the idea, which you all have heard from us at previous meetings, the idea of the concept of introducing multifamily into single-family zoned districts, specifically the R1 district, and multifamily meaning, first of all, duplexes, but also triplexes and fourplexes, concept-wise, right? And also, to further refine that, discussion about whether or not those multifamily uses should be allowed as permitted uses, meaning of right, or whether they should be allowed only as a conditional use. And there could be a break point in there between duplexes and fourplexes, triplexes and fourplexes. Anyway, Dan has made arrangements with the Citizens Advisory Council to get us on the agenda in January of 2025 to vet the idea with that group. And I don't know how familiar you're all with the CAC, but it's a compendium of consolidation of the different NIAs in the community. So it's an important group to vet the idea with. So that's on the agenda. And then we further discussed taking some other steps, possibly prior to the January meeting, some additional meetings. And Katie has graciously, Katie's a member of the committee, and she has offered to set up a meeting with the committee and planning staff with her membership, or at least some of her members. It is pretty obvious that any idea to introduce multifamily in the R1 district is dead on arrival if it doesn't have the support of the building community, because, you change the rules, refine the rules, and no consequence, what's the point? But to this point, in previous meetings that the committee's had where builders have been invited, they are receptive to text amendments that would allow the multifamily in. They're particularly interested, and no surprise, in the triplex and fourplex in addition to duplexes, and particularly interested in allowing those uses to be introduced of right. So you don't have to go through the conditional use permit process, which adds time and money to development. So we've got a couple ideas that we're going to follow through on and do more vetting between now and January. And the January 8th meeting with the CAC, we will make a presentation, and staff will have a slideshow similar to what you all have seen at previous meetings, and we'll see where it goes. That's not the end all, but we're hoping that we can get some positive feedback. And also at the meeting with the builders, told Katie that we also want folks to come in the door with any other ideas that would make their life easier, okay? Anything that would promote and encourage the development of housing, which we sorely need. So, I don't know, is there anything to add to that, Will or Katie?
No?
I think that's good.
Any questions for the committee or committee chair?
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, next is general public comment. Do we have any? No? All right. Then any communications to the commission from staff?
Nothing other than there's a meeting in December. I have a couple cases to consider, so no break for you guys. Us either. I don't think there's any other announcements.
All right. Well, then with that, we will adjourn.